I'm going to tell you about the new features in vRealize Automation 8.1. Let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Brian Watrous from VVork. If this is your first time here and you want to learn about automating, programming, and monitoring in VMware environments, you're in the right place. Start now by subscribing and click the bell so that you don't miss a thing. Okay, let's take a look at these new features in vRA 8.1. The first feature that you see listed here, approval policies, is actually a feature that existed in earlier versions of vRealize Automation. vRA 7.6 and earlier had approval policies, but the first versions of vRealize Automation 8 did not have approval policies. And so this is a feature that many of you have been clamoring for, and now in vRealize Automation 8.1 we have approval policies. That means that you can create blueprints, and when users make requests from your blueprints, we can subject those requests to approval policies that you specify. So for instance, if you wanted to, you could say conditions such as if the cost of a deployment is beyond a certain amount that you specify, then we want to subject that request to an approval. Now in your approval policy, you get to pick who the approvers are. And additionally, you get to pick things such as whether one person approving is sufficient or whether they all have to approve. So the approvers receive a message indicating that there is an approval awaiting their attention. When they examine the approval, they can see information about the request, and then they can decide whether to approve or reject the request. Again, approval policies is new, as far as vRA 8 is new as of vRealize Automation 8.1. Our next feature in vRealize Automation 8 is multi-tenancy. With multi-tenancy, you can have a single vRA environment deployed and have that environment logically carved up into different areas for different sets of users. So you could have one set of users, perhaps a customer of yours, and another set of users, another customer, and logically separate them within vRA. That means that the different user communities, those different tenants, are going to be able to have their own users, their own configuration, their own directory services, their own branding, and so forth. Again, all that's made possible through multi-tenancy. Our next new feature in vRealize Automation 8.1 is the enhancements that we've made to vRealize Orchestrator 8.1. Now, I've actually already created a video giving you an introduction to what the new features are in vRO 8.1. So take a look at the card up there, and you can take a look at that video to get all the nitty-gritty details about what's new in vRO 8.1. Our next new feature is called XaaS. XaaS stands for Anything as a Service, sometimes known as custom services, but whichever of those three names you happen to call it, the basic idea behind XaaS is to allow you to create blueprints in vRA that are accessible to users just like other types of blueprints, such as machine blueprints. But these blueprints, the XaaS blueprints, do something special. XaaS blueprints call out to an orchestrator workflow that you specify. Now that could be an orchestrator workflow that you wrote, or it could be an orchestrator workflow that VMware wrote, or your consultant writes. Whoever creates the orchestrator workflow, though, what you're able to do with XaaS is to create a blueprint that makes it easy for your end users to consume whatever functionality, whatever power that orchestrator workflow is providing. But again, to do so through the same service catalog that your vRA users already know how to use. So from the user perspective, they get to request new types of things in the vRA service catalog without having to learn a new interface, without having to learn vRO, without even having to know that there's any vRO involved. If you've come to this channel, you probably already know this, but just in case you're new to VVork, I am a big fan of vRealize Orchestrator, and if you've ever heard me talk about vRealize Orchestrator, I tend to get really excited about it because with vRealize Orchestrator, we can automate all sorts of different types of things. Not just your vSphere environment and not just your VMware products, but with vRealize Orchestrator workflows, we can automate essentially all of your IT infrastructure. And when you combine VRO with XaaS and vRA, essentially what that means is your user's going to have an easy way to tap into the power of whatever types of services you want to provide. Another new feature of vRA 8.1 that's closely related to XaaS is day 2 operation actions. Out of the box, vRealize automation supports various day 2 operations, such as with machines, there are standard day 2 operations such as power on the VM, or power off the VM, or take a snapshot of the VM. Those are what you might call standard day 2 operations. But with this new feature, what you're able to do is to create your own custom day 2 operations. And those operations can be performed on virtual machines or cloud machines, or if you've been creating new objects with your XaaS blueprints, you can even create day 2 operation actions for the objects that your XaaS blueprints are creating. So to move this away just a little bit from XaaS, since that's not something that necessarily everyone understands, but instead, if we talk about machines, everyone understands machines. Again, standard operations would be to do things like power on, power off, take a snapshot of the virtual machine. But with a custom day 2 action, you could create a custom day 2 operation that allows the user to request a security scan of the machine, or a compliance check, or whatever you want. Those are actually just 2 off-the-cuff examples. The reality is that these custom day 2 operations can do anything that you want. And the reason why they can do anything that you want is day 2 operation actions work by calling an orchestrator workflow. So again, if you create an orchestrator workflow, or VMware creates it for you, or your consultant creates it for you, the orchestrator workflow is what supplies the functionality. What a day 2 operation action is the thing in vRA that you set up to have that operation invoked, or specifically to have the orchestrator workflow that implements the operation invoked on the object. Again, that could be a machine, a virtual machine, cloud machine, or other non-machine type objects. Our next new feature in vRA 8.1 is pipeline as a service. Now, this particular feature is one that will be of interest to those of you who are developers. In particular, if you're a developer working within a company or an organization that employs CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, there is a feature that has already existed in vRA 8. Before 8.1, there's been a feature, a service called Code Stream. And what pipeline as a service does in vRA 8.1 is to allow you to take the code stream pipelines that are automating your entire CI/CD process. You can take those pipelines that you create in Code Stream and make them available as another thing that end users can request from the vRA catalog. Again, pipelines and Code Stream is more directed towards developers. It's not restricted to developers, but this is a feature that will appeal to developers. Our next new vRA 8.1 feature is PowerShell for ABX. ABX, Actions-Based Extensibility, is a feature that has existed within vRealize Automation 8 since vRA 8.0. But in earlier versions, before 8.1, the ABX functionality that we provide allows you to write code in either Python or Node.js and have that code be invoked when various events are occurring within vRealize Automation, such as when a machine's being deployed. You could have an ABX action that does something like put the machine into the domain. Again, in vRA 8.0 and vRA 8.0.1, ABX actions had to be written either in Python or in Node.js. But with vRealize Automation 8.1, you now have a third choice of languages to select from. Now your ABX actions can be in Python, Node.js, and we now support PowerShell. Our next new vRA 8.1 feature is on-demand NSX security groups. In earlier versions of vRealize Automation 8, for instance 8.0 and 8.01, we make it really easy for you in our Blueprint Designer to deploy not just machines, but networks to plug those machines into. And if you have NSX in your environment, your vRA blueprints can dynamically create new networks via NSX. And again, we make it very simple to do that by allowing you to simply drag and drop an NSX network from the left side of the Blueprint Designer into your actual canvas of components of machines, networks, drives, and so forth. With vRA 8.1, we now additionally have components that you can drag into your blueprint to specify that you want a machine to be put into a specific NSX security group. And the reason why you'd want to do that is once a machine is in an NSX security group, you can have that machine treated by NSX in various ways from a security perspective. For instance, you could have the NSX security group that a machine belongs to determine the firewall rules that are going to be applied to that machine. So again, NSX has had these security groups for quite some time, and NSX has had the ability to create these security groups on demand, but now in vRA 8.1, your blueprints can also take advantage of on-demand NSX security groups. The last new vRA 8.1 feature that I want to mention in this video is the one that you see down on the bottom of the list. But before I talk about it, I should point out that the list that you see here is not a complete list of all the new features. Keep listening in the video here and I'll show you where you can find out about additional features. But the last feature that we have listed here in this impressive list is vRA 8.1 now supports vSphere 7 and NSX-T 3.0. This has been a quick summary of some of the new features in vRA 8.1, but there are more features. How do you find out about more features? Well, one great way to find out about all the new features is to take a look down in the YouTube description below. I've recorded several different URLs, including one to a blog, actually numerous blogs by my colleagues Carl and Vincent. If you go to the blog post that I've recorded down in the YouTube description, you can find out loads more information about each of the features I've talked about, plus additional features that I didn't talk about in this video. Additionally, down in the YouTube description, you'll find other URLs that will take you to the release notes for vRA 8.1, the documentation for vRA 8.1, and perhaps most important of all, if you're excited now to go and get vRA 8.1, I've also recorded a URL in the YouTube description that will tell you where to go to download vRealize Automation 8.1. What's your favorite new feature in vRA 8.1? Let me know in the YouTube comments down below. So the approvers receive a without having to learn how to learn our next vRA 8.1 our next new vRA 8.1 feature is PowerShell. Summary of some of the new features in